What's going on? It's Meraki Monday. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our access methods to access our dashboard and devices, right? So we're going to go online and we're going to go to the Meraki dashboard, right? And then we're going to, with our laptop here, we're going to go ahead and log into the dashboard using our user account. Right, so we're logging into the Meraki dashboard using our user account. So then we can see things like organizations, we can see our networks, our devices. And so what other methods other than the browser do we have to access our devices using our account, right? We can use what's called an API. Meraki gives you two different methods to access everything within the Meraki dashboard, right? So there are a couple different APIs. There's a dashboard API, there's a scanning API. There's more than just the dashboard API, but for the focus of this video, we're really just focusing on the dashboard REST API, right? So what is a REST API, right? The REST API is a representational state transfer, right? So it allows us to create, let's say, a script on our laptop. We're going to write some code that allows us to go ahead and do different things, right? So we're in VS Code, we're writing Python that uses the REST API to go ahead and interact with the Meraki dashboard, right? So we're making a HTTP GET request so that we can request the organizations that my API key is tied to, right? So you need to generate an API key. With that API key, which is tied to your account, you will be able to do gets and puts and deletes and all kinds of HTTP methods that can do things to your Meraki devices and networks and organizations, right? So we're going to look at that in detail. We will script and I'll show you how to use it and how to write, with those. But in this video, we're just explaining it. So essentially the concept is that you configure an HTTP GET request, right, to pull the organizations, and you can see each organization is tied to what's called an org ID, and that number allows us to then access the networks within that organization and start to pull data about maybe what devices are in those networks, or what the name of those networks are, the location, the detail of that network, right? Or you could also get information about your devices, ports. You could do a put to configure a port, and so on and so forth. So a really good way to get started with this is to just check out the Meraki API documentation. And so we'll get the Meraki API docs on the screen here. This is the developer.cisco.com resource. All right, so here on the screen, we've got the Meraki API documentation, and in that documentation, it really teaches you how to use it. So you can go ahead and check this out. It's developer.cisco.com/Meraki API latest, right? You can Google Meraki API documentation. You want to look at the version 1, right? Because we're using version 1. And this is a Python module that you can leverage, right? But you can also use traditional methods such as like a curl command or even Postman or some other method like Python request module to manually script out your HTTP requests. They give you a great API that allows you to work with all of those HTTP requests in an easy to use package where most of the coding is done for you. So now all you got to do is read these docs and you can see, how to do different things. It's very powerful. I've used it quite a bit, and I've had the pleasure of being able to help others using the API to automate redundant tasks or repetitive, mundane tasks within their operations. So you can use it in yours as well, your organization. It is excellent. So let's just go ahead and say we want to configure something. So let's actually go down to organizations, and we can see we can get an organization. We can post and claim into the organization by our serial or order number. We can clone the organization. We can create an organization, or we can update parameters of an organization, right? So let's just take a look at this, and you can see here, if you click over on template, right, it will give you the Python library code that you need. And this is what I recommend you use at this time. There are other methods and things that you can use, but like I said, you can do Python requests, But this can get a little bit unwieldy and hard to work with over time. It is good in some instances, but for the most part, the Python library will do the job. If you work with Node.js, you can do the same here, or you can use the curl command on Linux just to do a one-off API call as well. I am a huge fan of Python, so Python library it is. We're going to go ahead and import Meraki. We're going to define our API key. Then we're going to basically create a dashboard session that allows us to feed that API key in, authenticate, and then we can name the organization and put that into a variable, and then create that organization and print the response that is sent back showing whether or not we get a 200, meaning success, or maybe a 401 or something else, some type of permissions error. Maybe we don't have the right permissions to create this within our API key. We'll get an unauthorized response back. So very, very powerful. This has been access methods. We've talked about just logging into the dashboard with the credentials that you're given or create, and you can get in and view everything in the dashboard and do everything in the dashboard. Or you can use the API and manipulate the dashboard using the dashboard API as well. Thank you so much for viewing this video, and I hope you have a great day.
Tech, let's talk about tech, let's talk about tech. George Tech Talk. Let's talk about